Well, welcome everyone to the Art of Paying Attention. This is your host, Ryan J. Pelton, where paying attention is our proper and endless work. I think Mary Oliver used to say that, so I stole it from her, but she was a great poet. But today is about paying attention, and what are we paying attention to today? We are paying attention to Bobby Dutton. Bobby Dutton is a licensed commercial pilot. He's a speaker. He is an event entrepreneur, and you are going to love my conversation with Bobby Dutton, how he takes his love of flying and what he's learned in being a pilot and applying it to his work and his entrepreneurship. And you're just going to really love it. Bobby just has a great spirit about him. He's just a joyful guy. He's just a happy guy. And I like having people on the show that are just joyful. They're happy. They bring a lot of value. They bring a lot of help. And especially in these days where things feel heavy, things feel dark, there's a lot to be thankful for, and there's a lot of good people doing good work in the world, helping make the world a better place. And Bobby is doing just those things. And so you're going to love my conversation with Bobby. Well, hey, I hope you are all doing well with whatever you're making, whatever you're building, whatever you're doing. And I want to just mention again, we are a podcast, The Art of Paying Attention, that is usually in audio, but we have shifted over to video as well. And so I've been putting my talkie talks on YouTube. And so if you go to Ryan J. Pelton, you can find the Art of Paying Attention podcast there on video. And so I did mention we're kind of transitioning to a new software. So the old episodes with Zoom look a little grainy. They may look like hostage videos, but we are moving to new software. So the newer episodes will look a little better. But I just want to put them out there. I know the kids were like, hey, you got to do video. Dad, you got to do video. That's where the kids do the things. That's where the kids hang out. They're on the video. So why aren't you on the video? It can't just be audio. So we're doing the video, shooting some video, and hopefully that serves you well. Well, I'm so glad to share with you another episode today. And before we get started, two quick things. One, hey, I want to just let you know that I offer some coaching services. And so I have two kind of lanes for coaching. One is, hey, if you're working on a project, you have a creative project, you have a business, you have a nonprofit you're trying to get off the ground, need some help thinking through that, what are next steps? Or maybe you're dreaming about a project or something you want to build, something you want to make, something you want to start. Maybe it's that next book project. Maybe that's starting that business or starting that nonprofit, whatever it is. I have a lot of experience in that. I'm a certified coach. If you'd like any help in coaching, go to my website, ryanjpelton.com/coaching, and I can help you out there. Just all the information's there. Also, if you're like feeling spiritually lost, you're feeling like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm feeling a little out of touch with my soul and God and myself. If you need some help with that, I also offer some spiritual coaching, and all the information is on the website as well. I have a lot of experience in that as a ordained pastor and spiritual director. And so I just love to be able to help and serve any way I can. I just feel like in these last days and weeks, depending on when you're listening to this, things have been really heavy, and I've just sensed that with people, just needing someone to talk to, needing someone to maybe walk with them, encourage them, help them feel like they're not alone, and also build the thing that God's calling you to build. And I know a lot of people are dreaming about things but not sure where to start, so hopefully that can serve you well. And then secondly, if you like the show or even don't like the show, leave a rating or review wherever you listen to the show, typically on iTunes. That really helps us get it out there. We're on Spotify. We're all over the place. But that helps get the word out, helps people find the show. So leave a rating or review. That would really help me and us do this work. Also on YouTube, you can subscribe and rate and do all that, whatever. Not rate. I don't know. Just subscribe. It's whatever the kids tell you to do. The kids know things that I don't know. So yeah, do that. That'd be helpful. Well, hey, without further ado, here's my conversation with Bobby Dutton. Well, hey, everybody. So glad to be joined today by Bobby Dutton. And Bobby, if you've ever listened to the show, we always do ask a first question, and that is, what are you paying attention to today?
Oh, man. I am paying attention to my own happiness.
All right.
'Cause this time of year is a lot, and if I'm not happy while I'm going through it, then what's the point? So I'm keeping a pulse on myself.
I love it. I love it. Well, hey, Bobby, so good to chat with you. And I'm so glad we got connected. I know you're doing some interesting work in the world and some interesting philosophies on life and the people you speak to. And so just to kind of kick it off, I mean, one of your kind of big themes is pilot thinking. And
Yes.
so pilot thinking's like your thing. So tell us a little bit what just the basics of what that is, and then we'll hear a little more of your story.
Sure. Yeah. So I've always been obsessed with airplanes since I was a tiny toddler in fighter jet pajamas, staring at every aircraft that went over the house. And I did end up getting my license, doing an enormous amount of pilot training. And what I noticed about it was just how cool the pilots are, both in terms of being awesome, but also how cool and non-stressed and how focused and in control they all seem. And just even paying attention to the way we listen to commercial pilots making announcements on the PA, like they sound so calm, but they're doing something so complicated.
Mhm.
How do they do that? And so the pilot thinking is all about learning from those techniques and processes so that we can learn how to stay calm and in control when life seems to be overwhelming and
Mhm.
we can get buried in
Mhm.
tasks.
Well, I love this. I was telling you off air that my dad's a pilot. I am not a pilot, but kind of the black sheep of the family. But my grandfather was a World War II test pilot,
Wow.
and you know it's funny when you say that. I resonate with that. I mean, I've flown with my dad many times, and he is the calmest, coolest guy,
Yeah.
and such a stress. I mean, to me, stressful. Like you're taking this big giant piece of metal up in the air, and there's weather, and there's all kinds of things beeping at you on the screen, and you're trying to navigate all these things, and they do it so calmly and so collectively. I mean, even if you've obviously like you said, flown commercial, the way they talk and the way they just like, hey, everything's good, everything's so.
Yeah.
So question would be for you, I mean, was that kind of like your makeup as you were growing up, or is that something that you can learn, or is that, I mean, I'd like to know because I don't know where my dad got it from, but is a little bit of both, or how did you kind of come to this idea of like kind of
Sure.
seeing this and like noticing this kind of calm and collective kind of focused life?
So flying has always been my fun thing. So I've taken it to a really high level, but I've never really done it as my active job, even though I'm licensed to do that.
Mhm.
And what I do for work professionally is I run a company that builds concerts. So tons of moving parts, artist egos, audience drama, tight timelines, hazardous equipment, a lot of variables and a lot of moving parts. And in the special events industry, what I started to notice was every time I said to somebody at a networking event, "So how's it going?" They always say, "Oh, just so busy, just April in special events world, you know
Mhm.
how it goes." Nobody says good or I'm loving my job. They just tell me how busy they are. And I noticed that every moment I was spending around pilots and in the cockpit and talking to air traffic, those conversations were arguably about much more high stakes, important things, but they were the most emotionless, calm, pragmatic communications I was hearing. And so for me to hear someone tell me at a networking event on a Tuesday night how stressed they are, there was a part of me that was kind of like, you're not stressed. You don't know what stress is. Nobody's going to die if you
Yeah.
need to cut out early today. You just don't know what's important right now.
Mhm.
You're
Mhm.
buried in 1,000 priorities and you're not sure which one needs to be the one thing you do well in the moment. And that's where this stress and overwhelmedness can really affect all of us on the
Mhm.
ground. And I can relate to it too.
Mhm.
If I've got 50 emails in my inbox and my phone's ringing, and I'm supposed to be somewhere, like it's too much. I can't address all of those things. So I noticed that pilots would never get bombarded from all directions like
Mhm.
that, and we needed to figure out how to articulate what was working in a way that could benefit folks on the ground.
Mhm. So, so you got into this work, of doing concerts and very chaotic,
Yeah.
obviously, learning how to fly and all that comes with that. And so was there ever a time in your life where you realized like this is not sustainable, or maybe you found yourself going, I'm not happy. I'm the one that's when everyone asks me, it's like I'm just busy. I'm just frazzled.
Yeah.
Was there ever like a breaking point for you where you realized like something really has to change? And what did that look like for you?
Well, I can remember seeing the irony in the way the people working on special events are generally not sustainably happy and seeing that as a real problem. Um, the classic roadie who's in black jeans that haven't been washed in 3 weeks, haven't slept more than an hour in a month, it's too much. And so if we were going to be building these experiences to create happiness for people, we weren't doing it authentically if we weren't experiencing happiness on the back end. And so that was a real pivotal moment for the company. And I remember when we had to redefine our mission, and thinking about the missions of events companies is funny because you hear a lot of kind of interchangeable, boring market speak, the premier company for all of your needs, building memories. Like, it's all right, fine. But what we needed to do was say, okay, we're a company that engineers happiness, right? The product is, you trust us. We're going to figure out all the complicated stuff and generate authentic happiness that can scale to you, to your leaders, to the audience, and to make a long-term machine that long-term generates happiness successfully. And so that's our why, making people happy. Then our how is building legendary events one at a time. And then only then do you get to the what, which is, yeah, we're going to need to do some stuff with speakers and figure out what size the stage needs to be and get a permit for this pyrotechnic effect. But all that stuff is later. The happiness is first, and it has to be from top to bottom. And that was a real turning point for us, and it worked.
So you kind of reverse engineered kind of your mission, your, why do we exist? What are we trying to accomplish? Yeah, would it look like to not just have, new verbiage or a new mission statement on the website and, on the, your, I don't know, pamphlets or, whatever you're passing out to people or whatever,
Sure.
if that's old school, but, how did you kind of help your partners, your employees, your, kind of buy in? Like, how did they change their kind of way of moving through the world? Because it's, it's one thing to say, hey, we're going to look like this or do this, but like, what were some of like the practices, the habits, what had to change for that to actually happen?
Yeah. So we are very proactive with our team metrics, and our team metrics we defined at that moment where every week I need to know, how happy are you? How stressed are you? And how full is your plate from 1 to 5? And this is just data because I'm an engineer. So even though we're talking about emotional stuff, I need the numbers. And that helped me keep a pulse on everybody. It helped me define and identify trends in the wrong direction or hazardous conditions. And just the same way that if an airplane engine gets too hot in one of the cylinders, the engine's not going to run anymore pretty soon. So you got to either fix it or get on the ground safely. And so now I have ways to define my team's engine ability to run. And another way we do it is at the beginning of every meeting. We just had a team meeting this morning. We're talking about 7 concerts in the next 10 days, which is a lot. We had a lot to cover today. But before we got into any of that, we went around and said, I want to know one thing that's making everybody happy right now. So somebody says, I got to see my mom for her birthday. Somebody says, I went golfing this weekend and really recharged the batteries. It has nothing to do with work. And they can be big things or tiny things. It can be, my shower was really warm this morning and man, I needed that. And this is powerful stuff. And we do this. This is item 1 on any agenda for any meeting we do. And it's so important to acknowledge that the human mind has this negativity bias where it will tell you all the things that are going wrong because from an evolutionary standpoint, those are the things that need your attention right now. And so you won't think about how nice that shower was or this vacation you've got coming up in a month until you get to it. It's easy to just kind of succumb to the negativity that your mind puts together for you. And don't get me wrong, that's helpful. We do need to deal with some of these things to get in a good place, but we have to be really intentional about giving some of our attention to the happy things. And so by doing that to set the tone of a meeting, we're reminded of who we are as a company and what we're trying to build for people emotionally. And then we say, all right, yeah, we got a bunch of curveballs we got to deal with. We got rain coming for this load in on Saturday. How are we going to deal with that? And we get into it, but we do it because we started with happiness in the meeting. And when the show ends, hopefully we were successful in bringing happiness to our clients and our audiences. And that makes it real and puts everything else kind of on the back burner.
I love this. I remember years ago, I worked at a golf course, and when they were training us, just like customer service and all that, they said they did this study with Disneyland, and they realized that if somebody has a good experience, they tell 3 people. If they have a bad experience, they tell 15 people. and I remember
data.
It was like, just as a human, you're like, yeah, what's in us that goes, hey, we have this great experience. Why wouldn't I tell 100 people? And instead I tell three, as opposed to when I have a bad experience, I'm telling the whole world. I mean, that's kind of what, Yelp's built on and other kind of
It's
review
true.
culture, right? It's like my burrito was cold, and I tell 5,000 people. Um, but no, I think this is really powerful, Bobby. I think, taking the time to kind of talk with your employees, to actually kind of name just those, like you said, they could be big macro happiness things like, hey, I just got married, or hey, I, saw my family or whatever, or just like, hey, yeah, the shower was really enjoyable this
Yeah.
morning, or, I had a nice cup of coffee or whatever. Because we generally don't do that. We're not good at like, a lot of people have like gratitude practices or, hey, just taking time each day to just say, I'm thankful for this or that. We kind of ignore those things. And then we point out all the things that are wrong, right? All the things that are not working in our lives, but which we all have.
Yeah.
But to kind of start the day with that, I think is such a powerful kind of practice to do.
Yeah.
Um,
And there's so much going well all the time, and it's just invisible
right,
by default. And that's
right.
that's too bad.
Yeah. So what is like let's say like an event, like what does like post event kind of evaluation look like? Like how do you kind of bake that into obviously things go wrong. I mean every
Sure.
event, you're gonna have problems or whatever. But is there a way you kind of do it post event to kind of keep that kind of momentum and help people see kind of the good and what just happened?
Yeah. So most of our events are annuals. So we do Harvard's Big Spring Concert every spring. And while some parts and pieces will change, an artist, a theme, the student leaders, that sort of thing, a lot of it's the same. The same gate we come through to bring the stage in and the same timeline. And we do have a very intentional show file process where everyone goes and kind of just contributes their feedback to the event. How did it go? What were the stress points? What were the good things? What are people talking about? What do you remember? And we'll analyze on, again, data, right? So I want to know how it went from a standpoint of relevance, authenticity, value, and emotion. And these came from this great event company called Voc Doms. But for an event to be successful, those are the four areas it needs to score highly in. And what I love about that is it really gives you a sense of, yeah, my burrito was cold, right? Yeah, that's just a temperature issue. That's a very specific problem.
Mhm.
But an event is more complicated than a burrito. And so if the event didn't go great, that's important information, but we need to know a lot more about what it was. And from an audience experience standpoint, it was probably relevance, authenticity, value, or emotion, but probably only one of those. And that'll help us zoom in on what the problem is. So these show files that we have are the first thing we look at when we go to build next year's iteration of this show.
Mhm.
And we can get a lot of really actionable information where we say, we put this piece over here, but nobody really went there. It had no effect on anyone. So let's move it or cut it or save the money, you know? And by having that baseline from a real, firsthand experience, we're able to build on the baseline of what we've done in the past, but make really smart choices about how to create that positive experience for people next year,
Mhm.
super efficiently. So again, it's always about this systematic framework around emotional things.
Mhm.
And I think that's such an interesting intersection, right? Because the emotion matters. Like flying an airplane,
Mhm.
the whole point of it is because it's magical to me. If I were to go flying tomorrow, yes, I need to monitor all those cylinder temperatures and things we talked about. But why, right? Why do I need to do that? Why am I trying to get 10,000 feet off the ground off the coast of New Hampshire by myself if I'm not going anywhere? And it's because I believe that has an emotional impact that matters to me. And I've identified that and I've done all the work and identified all the pieces I need to do to get there. Because once I do, I'm glad that I'm there. And I feel like that has an emotional payoff as well. So
Mhm.
I love this idea of like breaking down problems into quantifiable dimensions,
Mhm.
but then paying attention to the whole point of things once you see the big picture.
Mhm. So I have to ask you this. I love going kind of deep on the show, kind of, philosophically or just, and a lot of it has to do with like your own story. And just as you share these things that you seem like just an interesting guy because you have kind of this
Thanks.
engineering background, but you have this very deep kind of emotional resonance to, paying attention to certain things. It's not just data, right? There's humans and there's feelings and there's happiness to consider and all that. Like what, in your story, like how did you grow up? How did you kind of come to this place of taking some of these things and kind of bringing it into even your own company, your own work? Not just kind of engineer brain, but like,
Sure.
this whole experience of, what makes me happy and what makes you happy and why that matters. To talk a little bit about
Yeah.
that. What are some of like your early influences?
Well, when I was growing up, I was into everything, right? I wanted to take stuff apart. I wanted to be on the varsity sports team. I wanted to act in the play, but I wanted to know how the lighting board in the back of the shadowy auditorium worked also. And I was stretched too thin. And my high school years, like I'm very proud of it because I did all those things and it was awesome, but it wasn't sustainable. Like you can't stay up late for practice and musical rehearsal and then
Mhm.
get there early for the AV club in the morning and be a student at the same time. It
Mhm.
was it was too much. And what was interesting was when I learned how to stack things. So DJing was my first foray into the events world. And what was cool about that was it was really putting me into my flow state where I was like, I can be the guy that pushes buttons. I could be the guy that chooses what music the room listens to. So we all get those chills together. And I can be the entrepreneur that's brainstorming on how to make this my career. And doing all three of those things in one activity gave me time to sleep at night and talk to people around me and think. And that was really important. And so I've learned that my happy place is right at this Venn diagram overlap of curiosity and adventure and emotional impact and engineering and buttons and tech.
Mhm.
And everything that I've done that felt like I'm in the place that I was born to be
Mhm.
is when I'm in that magical overlapping space. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's the tech and the engineering, but using it to do something that matters.
Mhm. No, I love that. I think that's a very important part of just being a leader, owning something, building something, running something, leading something, whatever. Um, just being self-aware, right? Knowing that you're in the right spot. And I think that, with age, I don't know how old you are, but as you get older, go through some experiences, you begin to realize like there are certain things I'm good at, there's things I'm not good at, there's things that suck the life out of me, there's things that bring me life, and being aware of those things are really helpful because you can kind of, as you are able to put yourself in a place that really you can kind of create space to kind of be the best version of you, not try to be somebody else you aren't. So I think that's really cool that you've had kind of this self-awareness to know like, yeah, I've kind of always been this way, but there's also like another level of because when you're young, you just have, limitless energy and you just kind of can
Right.
go off adrenaline and energy because you don't get tired and you can eat whatever you want, do whatever you want. You don't
Yeah,
think about
remember
it.
how nice that was?
Yeah, right. And then you get older and you're like, oh yeah, I can't eat that. I can't stay up that late anymore because I'm gonna have to pay for it for the next 4 days.
Right.
But that's a gift, right? That's a gift to yourself and the people around you and the people you lead. I love that. Um,
It's cool to see the that other people around you getting into that place too.
mhm,
And specifically within events, it's been fascinating to do some of our greatest moments in events are when we understand, the parts we're working on, the scope of the project, but we've also empowered and coordinated with a lot of the right people. So it's like, oh, that's Laser Andrew. He builds custom lasers and he loves it and he's so good at it. And we gave him the right amount of power and time and budget to say, Andrew, we want to do something crazy with lasers. Like,
mhm,
you tell us how that works and what help you need to get you there. And then we want to build a space for you to just thrive in
mhm,
your wheelhouse. And if you can do the same thing for a bunch of people around you in these adjacent areas, it becomes this awesome project or day where everyone's doing what they want because they love it. And
mhm,
it's like, yeah, if you put me in that place, I'll do it for 40 hours straight without needing to eat or sleep. No problem. It's like
mhm,
that's my happy place. And it is possible to get huge amounts of work done if you can get rid of the parts that prevent people from being in that space mentally.
mhm,
So it's cool to think about empowering the virtuosos and seeing what happens when you do.
mhm. So as you're talking, thinking about events, and I've done quite a few live events and speaking things and what have you, and I'm always fascinated, even like gone to live concerts and my wife and other people, and every time I walk away, I go, what is it about being together in a live situation that just brings joy into people's lives? Like
Yeah.
it's like a tangible, and this is going to sound stupid, but the other night, actually, I was watching a YouTube video. It was actually a Coldplay concert. And he came on stage. It was actually Chris Martin came on stage with another artist, and he sang one of his famous songs. And I was just like, they're panning to the audience, and people were like in tears, and they were
Yeah.
singing the song, and they were kind of getting each other involved and stuff. And I go, there's something interesting about this communal experience that people are having. And I just think of like your work and what a joy that is to kind of bring people together to have this kind of happy experience. But what do you think, like, put your engineer brain to the side, but like what is kind of underneath that you think that just brings people a lot of joy? Like we keep doing it, like even in a
Yeah.
pandemic. I mean, we were like, we got to get back together. We can't be isolated.
Yeah.
What, just as you've experienced events, like what is it? What do you think it is?
I think we are social creatures, whether we know it or not. We're desperate for that social contact. And unfortunately, or not necessarily unfortunately, but more and more of our world is coming digitally now.
Hmm.
You and I aren't in the same room right now,
Right.
enjoying whatever benefit that physicality would bring us. And so even though it's really cool that we're able to have this conversation and it looks good and sounds good and we can have eye contact and
Hmm.
everything, like that's amazing from a tech standpoint. But we're starving ourselves for the social
Hmm.
contact we need.
Hmm.
And so that's why I think when you do get in the same space with a bunch of other people experiencing the same three-dimensional real world as you at the same time, there's magic there because that's now scarce. And as a result, it makes it sacred.
Hmm.
And so I think that's super important. They talk about digital natives are the people that grew up with all this digital stuff was just the way it was. Like
Hmm.
that's of course that's
Hmm.
how you listen to music. You don't have to go find it. You can have it on Spotify or Apple
Hmm.
Music. It's on my earbuds. I don't know how it got there, but it's here and it's
Hmm.
free. So why would I walk down to Newbury Comics or go to this show? And so that social contact is so critical, but unfortunately it's something we're getting less and less of because of how capable the digital world is getting. And,
Hmm.
and it's important to build these experiences that remind people that you need this and it's worth coming and you will find something that you weren't getting before in the digital world, even
Hmm.
though that world is so capable.
Hmm. Do you think in your experience and like your work, I mean, I know there's a lot of conversations of like, everything's going to be, AI, VR, all that. Like we're just going to try to replicate, real things and digital spaces and what have you. But do you think there'll be a point? I think about my kids too that are a little more digital native. I got a kid who's almost 18 and kind of that's all he's known and others, but do you think there'll be like a breaking point where we kind of along the lines of what you said earlier that we'll just realize like we do need more kind of flesh and blood experiences, like putting aside our devices, putting aside our, not to say they're not going away. We know that like phones aren't just one day going to be like, oh, that was a good idea. But, and
Right.
maybe who knows? I don't know. Maybe we're all just get too addicted and have to start something else. But do you think there'll be kind of a coming back to more analog, more like flesh and blood? I mean, what are you
Definitely.
seeing kind of in your work? Is that happening
Yeah.
at all? I mean, I know I totally agree with you. I know it's less and less, but at the same time, like there does have to be a breaking point where you realize like maybe that's not good for us if we're just, on a screen all the time.
Yeah. And I think I'm starting to see a few things on the event side and just on the personal observation side.
Hmm.
On the personal side, I've seen more people acknowledging the fact that scrolling
Hmm.
has decreasing value,
Hmm.
right? If
Hmm.
I open Instagram just from muscle memory after this chat, yeah, I'll see a soccer highlight that's neat. Like, oh, that was a great goal. No way.
Hmm.
And that gives me some delight, some oxytocin, whatever it is. But if I choose to keep scrolling, and obviously the good people of Instagram are paid to keep me there because that's their whole job and it's all they've been doing for
Hmm.
decades, so they know how to keep me there. Uh, the 10th minute of scrolling gives me so much less than the first minute.
Right. Yeah.
And the 30th minute gives me even less.
Yeah.
And people see that now. They say, "Yeah, I can see this isn't good. I'm not sure how to fix it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what I like. What do I do? Just walk outside? I don't get it. That doesn't make sense to people anymore.
Yeah.
But they can see that just sitting there staring at their phone is draining them in a negative way. And I think just that awareness is an important first step. On the event side, uh, before COVID, we were doing just big concerts, right? Loud, crazy, big energy, dense crowds. It was great. That was our world. And we're very happy to be doing that again now that it's safe to do it again post COVID. But while the world was shutting down and all the social distancing requirements were kicking in, everyone in events was tempted to pivot to virtual, right? That was the
Hmm.
hot phrase. And they said, "Oh, well, we can still do a concert. We'll just do it over Zoom."
Hmm.
And there were a lot of concerts on Zoom, and stuff like that. To me, I just knew that was not the direction we were going to go with concerts, even in a pandemic. Like, don't get me wrong, I was desperate for the paycheck and
Hmm.
wanted to make these things happen. But I was just like, I feel like there's an awfully lot of crowded companies and people creating digital content. YouTube,
Hmm.
Netflix, Hulu. You can go watch a Coldplay concert in 4K on your couch. It's
Hmm.
there. It's
Hmm.
free. Go
Hmm.
ahead. So like for me to create a live concert on Zoom, I didn't see that being competitive from a viewer value standpoint. So I resisted that urge. Instead, we said, okay, what can we do safely, even in this scary world that has a virus out there? And we did some really interesting things because schools were starting to move students back on campus, even when they still had to wear masks and couldn't have more than 25 people in the room or whatever the state regulations were at the time. And we said, okay, well, I know there's companies with speakers and video screens and all these technologies we used to use for events that were desperate to get paid too. And I said, if I can come up with something that's safe, that's compliant, but still in person, wouldn't that be more important than another bit of digital entertainment? And it was. We did an event called Project Lucid Dream, and it was kind of like a haunted house format. It wasn't scary, but a small group of people flowed through things in a calm way, and we gave them different pieces just to kind of be in this room, look around, explore, discover, be curious. And the dream format was good because it kind of meant there's no rules. It doesn't have to make sense, which was helpful from a designing something new standpoint. And it was great. And I could watch people. Um, in the last room of this project, it was a curved video screen. It was 8 feet tall and it was 360. And you walk in and you stand in the middle of it. And this was outside. I had sprayed coconut essential oil on the grass, so it smelled like sunscreen. And all that was on the video screen was waves crashing. And there was subwoofers and bass, and it felt like a powerful moment outside of waves crashing. And this was in November in New England, and we had heat pumping in. We had thousands and thousands of watts of incandescent light creating sunlight. This is at night outside in the cold in November. And I could see people's shoulders go from this tense, anxious, scrunched up COVID life. And I could see them watching the waves, and I could physically watch their shoulders come
Hmm.
down for the first time in weeks. And that's when I knew I was like, people needed this so
Hmm.
much more than they needed a Zoom concert right now.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that was really important and it was really powerful. And the best part is, fast forward to today, when we can kind of do whatever we want again outside from a safety standpoint. You know what events are still happening as much as concerts? Just these gatherings. Just come hang out,
Hmm.
relax, discover, just be here. And so we're doing large events with structures and music and swings, but instead of pack in 10,000 people to blast music and have this big climactic energy, just be here. That's the
Hmm.
product, and that's what they need. And we're seeing that going very strong, and I think that's a good thing.
Hmm. No, that's interesting because I've heard some like comedians talk about like having the options or having the opportunities to do like arenas, but really choosing like more intimate, smaller theaters just for that
Yeah,
reason. I think of like, yeah, I could do that, but I want to be with the people and they want to be with each other and have this, experience with a few hundred people as opposed to, a few thousand people. Um,
yeah,
but that is interesting, because I think even in a arena space, I mean, obviously you've probably done some of that stuff is like you you can feel disconnected. Like I've been to some concerts where like you're way in the back and it's like I could just be on my couch right now because I feel like I'm I'm here but not part of it, because you're so far away
yeah.
and the
Do you know how Coldplay solved that in an arena?
uh-uh.
They had the Xylo bands. They were the first ones to do the band where you are wearing a light that is controlled as the group. And that was very important
Oh,
because
interesting. Yeah.
if you're just standing in a pitch dark grandstand in the
Yeah.
back of a giant arena, you don't feel like you matter because the show's going to happen whether you're there or not.
Yeah.
And that's not
Yeah.
a good feeling. That's
Yeah.
that's passive viewing. That's what
Yeah.
we already do on YouTube.
Right.
So now you are the show and
Yeah.
you're seeing everyone else over there who is the show and they're a
Yeah.
half a mile away on the other side. I think
That's
that
really
was
cool.
pretty nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and that, I mean that's probably like addressing a problem. Yeah, it's like I remember going to like a Dave Matthews concert, band concert. I mean, it dates me, but and the late 90s at Dodger Stadium and you're like sitting in the back and it's like you're watching him on a screen and he's this
Yeah,
big, and it's like, oh, this is great. Like I could just listen to my CD in my car and you know,
exactly. And
you know,
that's for events people, that's the big question
yeah,
producers need to ask is what are we trying to give our audience that they don't already have for free?
yeah,
Whether it's a feeling or a part of the
yep,
experience or the light on your wrist, you need an answer to that. Because if it's just, would you like to listen to Dave Matthews? You don't need to spend money or get to Dodger Stadium for
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so I've asked you, I did ask you kind of the deeper question, like what is it that, why people want to gather and be together and in live events and things. You've mentioned a little bit, but like, what would you, in your own words, like, how would you say, like, this was a really good event? Here's why. Or what did we experience or what did we feel? Or like, how do you kind of, I mean, again, I know you, my wife's a nurse and I always say like, how do you not get numb to death? Because there's always
Mm.
death around you. But like, when you do a lot of events, how do you not just kind of get numb to like, okay, we did another one, whatever. But what are
Sure.
kind of like the metrics where you go like, I really think this worked well because of A, B, or C. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
So the specifics
Yeah,
are
yeah.
uh, we all have cell phones in our hands all the time,
Hmm.
right? For better or for worse. Everyone has at least one cell phone on their
Right.
person 100% of the time. And this is, I would argue that this is not a positive thing for emotional social connection in general, but it is a really important thing for metrics. If you're at an event with people around you, if you're not engaged with the event at all, because for whatever reason, you don't like the music, nothing's happening, it's not interesting, you're bored, this is your source of something better, right? So if my eyes and attention are here, this is where my mind is. This is not good enough anymore. It's not
Mm,
competing. And so for that reason, that's 0% engagement. So if we were to do an event and all of the people generally had their phones out to find
mm,
entertainment elsewhere, that was unsuccessful, right?
mhm,
Objectively. Uh, then something interesting happens as the engagement gets better. Your cell phone becomes up here, right? You say, "Oh, this is cool. I'm going to show my friends this. I'm proud of this. I want to remember this. I want to picture it in my photo album, or I want to live stream this because I am now the contributor to my digital world. I'm the creator. That makes me feel important."
mm,
But the best part of all, when we're truly successful with engagement with an event, is when you forget you have a cell phone. They're gone. People are just focused, they're together, they're actually taking this in without worrying about how to get it again later or who to tell it to. Just take it in. When we can unify people in one physical space together so they're experiencing the same thing, that's when you get that moment where you want to cry at a Coldplay concert
mhm,
because
mhm,
your body is telling you, I've been desperate for this feeling, this
mhm,
connectedness, and
mhm,
finally I'm getting it. Thank goodness. And that's the dream. And obviously it can be tough because if you have all these curated social media channels that give you all of your favorite stuff,
mhm,
and there's 9,999 other people around that also have that, how do we create one reality that everyone agrees on, even for a
mhm,
few minutes? And that's the challenge. But at least we know that that's what we're going for, and
mhm.
it's cool to see that happening.
Well, that's really smart. Like, yeah, I mean, it's funny. I heard this comedian recently on an interview say, like, when they're putting their stand-up special together, that the, higher ups were telling them, like, hey, just so you know, when you do something on Netflix or whatever, like, people are looking at their phones the whole time, like, as
Mm,
they're like multitasking.
yeah,
So, the question would be like, it needs to be so good that people like put their phones away because,
yeah,
or it's got to be real short because people just don't have the attention spans to,
yeah,
which is also kind of sad, like, but you want it to be so good that like, hey, I want my movie or my TV show or my comedy special to be so good that people go like, I don't need my phone. I can't even look at my phone because this is so funny or so engaging or so,
yeah,
crazy or, whatever, like such an experience. Like, so maybe it's a bigger question of like, we need to make better art, I guess, or
yeah,
create better experiences. I don't know.
or just remind people of the power of singular focus.
Yeah.
And I mean, circling even all the way back to airplanes. Something I love about that flight in New Hampshire is I don't have a cell phone in that moment.
Hmm.
I'm flying the airplane and I'm enjoying the experience it's
Hmm.
creating for me. That's my whole world. And that's so important. And that's part of why it's such an important part of my life because
Hmm.
when I get back on the ground, it feels like I've rebooted my brain. It feels like I've closed all my tabs in my browser and I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, I just did something that was important, that was challenging, that was interesting, that I'm good at, that I love. Now I have a new context of, all right, what's in my inbox? Yeah, okay, yeah, I'll answer this question or I'll
Mhm.
schedule this meeting tomorrow. That's fine. But none of it's piling in on me like those equal priorities anymore
Mhm.
because I've done something on my terms and now I can return to the world on my terms too.
Mhm. I love that. So, so Bobby, we've talked a lot about a lot of things, and you made a good segue. Um, as far as pilot thinking, so what's like your hopes, your dreams, like this message, this philosophy, this kind of singular focus, calm,
Yeah.
happy. What does that look like in your company, beyond your company, in the broader world? I know you do some speaking and some other things, but yeah, what are you
Yeah.
hoping to kind of like? What's the next thing for you?
I want to help people be happy and productive
Hmm.
because that's what pilot thinking has done for me. I'm in my busiest week of the year from a professional standpoint, and I'm having a fun chat with you. My
Hmm.
team's out there, everybody's doing what they're good at,
Hmm.
and life is good, and I'm so grateful for that. And I know how hard it is for people to get in a place where things seem to be working without feeling overwhelmed. So I want to teach people how to think like that,
Hmm.
how to find that happiness and be super organized and prioritized and productive at the same time.
Well, I think,
Um,
yeah,
Go
I think
ahead.
Bobby, this is like, such a needed thing in our world. I mean, just personally, and the people you interact with, probably the same people I interact with in different ways, different places of the country, around the world. Um, yeah, the focus, what matters most, and sometimes we don't even know what does because we're so frazzled and so just all over the place, and so kind of missing, like we're not even present in the things that we're doing because we're over here somewhere because we're stressed
Yeah,
or we're hurt or we're whatever. Um, so what would be the best place like for people to find you, connect with you,
sure.
learn more about you?
Yeah, I've got a link tree type thing at bobbydutton.com for some jumping off points, but
Hmm.
thinklikeapilot.com for speaking engagements and professional development, and then GBM6, as in Golf Bravo Mike 6.com. That's the events company too, but you can find those links at the link tree as well.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, Bobby, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom and your experiences and your story. And I know you're going to help a lot of people just by us sharing this conversation, but you're going to continue to help a lot of people. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you for having me. Really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
my pleasure.
Cheers.